So, hello and welcome to the Talk Tonight podcast. Doing something a bit different today. We're going to be discussing Lockdown 2 and just basically how much of a joke it is. We've got Jack Cattle, who you may recognise from an earlier podcast. We've got Paddy from Vela Incident. We've got Alexander from Tugboat Captain. And we've got Liam Hillier. How are you all doing, guys?
Good, man.
Oh, well, thanks, man. All good.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. So, I suppose my first question, I'm just going to throw it out to all you. How is Lockdown 2 going to impact you as musical artists?
Who wants to start? I think we can all start now with this one, can't we, really?
This is going to put everything on pause, isn't it, basically? Anything that we'd started doing between the lockdowns is now dead in the water again.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I know, Jack, personally, you played a show about a week ago. Obviously, now it's all back on pause.
We've played a few. We've been quite lucky. In the Midlands area, we've had quite a lot of gigs on. Birmingham promoters and Sonic Gun concerts have done really well to get them on, and they've been really safe as well. Like the distancing and all that has been followed to a T. So, yeah, really lucky to have had them. But obviously, all our plans now for the rest of 2020 are a bit up in the air, which is going to make the single release and everything a bit difficult, but we've just got to wait and see. Hopefully it will only be a month, and that's part of the problem is that, yeah, last time they said it was going to be a certain amount of time, and then look how long we were in lockdown for. So it's just the uncertainty that surrounds it that's pissing all the artists off, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, isn't it? Because, like you said, social distancing has been followed. I don't know if any of you have been following Andy Burnham and Sasha Lord's campaigns in Manchester. But let's say the impact of COVID from hospitality is like 3% compared to like schools and universities. It's just a joke. What do you think, Liam?
We actually played a lockdown gig in Manchester at Lock 91, which was sold out. To be fair, there was 40 people socially distanced. There was no issues with it at all. Everyone was on their own table. Everyone was, adhering to social distancing as much as possible. And the fact that, so that's in Manchester City Centre, and that was just before they had the Tier 3 system going in, and there were still issues. Like, there were still people saying, "Oh, is it going to be cancelled? Is it going to be this? And it's going to be that." It's weird because you're starting to catch momentum. You're going on with the momentum, and once you start catching it, you go back into another lockdown, and it's like, what is going on here? Because ultimately, us as musicians, we can do so much online. We can do so much as recording, we can do so much as trying to promote ourselves, but the live scene is where your fan base is, where you can be so, like, it's so intimate with them. It's just a strange thing to do, and at the moment, because we've been pulled back from that to go into another lockdown, it's really not going to help, because it's like the momentum's there, and it's kind of like going to fifth gear straight back into first gear again, and your car's just screaming at you. It's just that's where it is. We're just slowing down completely again, come to a grinding halt. So
yeah, well, I don't know what you all think about like going into another lockdown. Personally, I think it's an absolute shambles. I think it's not going to actually impact us in the long run. Probably should have stayed in lockdown a bit longer the first time. Won't be in this mess. But it's impacting us all differently. I mean, Paddy, you've got a lot to do with like a bar and events and stuff. How's it impacted you?
Yeah, I mean, it's for one reason or another, indirectly or directly with lockdown, it's kind of put everything on hold. So when we came out of lockdown, we weren't able to reopen because the bar had to be adapted during lockdown in order to survive, basically. So they turned it into provide food, and then everything kind of got shunted about because they needed the space to create a kitchen in order to do the food. So we've kind of put it back on hold completely, and we're almost waiting for the whole thing to just go away, which, I guess it's not showing signs of that at the moment. But I've done a few gigs. We were actually due to do a gig that was outside. It was just after lockdown had been lifted. It was a big outdoor gig, and people were kind of clamoring for plenty. So it sold really well. The stage was enormous. It was like this huge. We were like, wow, this could actually be the greatest gig we've ever played. And then it hoyed it down with rain, and they had to cancel the gig. So like, we finally get out of lockdown, finally get this opportunity to play this amazing gig, and the rain is what does it. So, but yeah, I mean, we're recording and releasing stuff, but as has been said, it's not the same not being able to play live, and I know, I guess, we're going back into it now, and you can't almost see an end to it until sort of spring next year. And with Christmas is another time of the year where bands that's kind of meat and drink for bands. There's a lot going on at Christmas time, a lot of gigs. We put gigs on and we play gigs, and you can't see it happening. So yeah,
No,
positive.
Like you say, it's trying to find an end to it all, though, because we're going back into a second lockdown, but is this all going to spike again once it goes back to normal? Well, normal.
It needs to be a one-off final thing, doesn't it? Now, really, you can't go, because Boris is saying it needs to be the 2nd of December to come out. He doesn't want to be the Prime Minister to cancel Christmas, but what I don't want him to do is just cancel everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if he does it for a month and then we come out and it's like, okay, well, we're back to normal now. What happens if that doesn't work? And then by February next year, we go back into another 3-4 month lockdown again, like we did last March, like this March coming. So I'd rather take the hit of it now and stay off and be whatever it needs to be for longer, then go back in, get back into the swing of things, and then you're straight back off again. I mean, what's the point in that? And we've all done that already, and we know how challenging it actually is. So it's a bit of a farce, really, isn't it?
That's where people's mental health gets played with as well, because you can prepare as much as you want. I mean, we've been planning this year since March. We got all our new plans in place for when lockdown was lifted. Then obviously lockdown's lifted, brilliant. And then now we're having to replan again and sort of come up with some sort of strategy that's bulletproof, and it's impossible because like we've all said, like live shows are what we live for and what we live to do. Like being in the studio is great and we enjoy that as well, but you want to play in front of people, you want people to hear your tunes, and it's just not the same playing a live stream to people that you can't see.
You end up feeling like you're busking so much on a live stream instead of playing a live gig. That's what I find. And everyone, like your family and friends, are watching it. And it's like, oh, well, can you play Justin Bieber or something? I'm just like, well, no, because that's not what we do. It's just like the weirdest setup. It's the closest thing we're going to get to reality at the minute, but it's not, because I'm sat there playing to a computer screen. I go back off and then I go and watch the telly again in my house. Like there's no adrenaline. There's nothing really. It just doesn't feel like a live gig. It really doesn't.
I think the frustrating thing about what you're saying about the hospitality industry is that they opened back on end of June, and then we had July and August where everything continued to be fine. And then September comes, kids go back to school, and now suddenly we've got this huge problem. So the problem is that the real problem, which is probably kids transmitting it and they're asymptomatic, that's not actually being taken care of. So you can't. This is why you can't see this. This is why I don't have a lot of hope for this lockdown, because you can't see it working. Because the issue is still the fact that kids are in school. Not that I'm arguing, because I've got a 3-year-old, but that could be the problem. And we just continue to rise and rise and rise, and then you just puts more and more pressure on hospitality, on bars, and then and nothing gets better because the real issue isn't being tackled.
Well, there clearly needs to be like a long-term strategy, right? Because like for people like us, we can't prepare and plan anymore. Like if the rules change every month, like how can you prepare what you're going to do next? Like we've given up making plans. Like there's no point, because every time you try and book something, it looks like it's going to be cancelled again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my main issue is the fact that the government seems to have double standards for everything. So, like music industry and the arts, they don't get support, they don't get anything. Bars, gig venues, they're closing. But then, the theatres, the opera houses, they're open to thousands of people, and then football stadiums can't open. And it's almost like it's an attack on the working class sort of, leisure activities. Working class, they go to the football, they go to the pub. No, you can't do any of that. But if you can afford to go to the theatre, which costs plus £100 a ticket, feel free. And it winds me up massively, because obviously I'm not in a band or anything, but I love going to see music, I love going out, and you just can't do any of it at the moment. And
the issue which we had was because obviously I'm Northwest way. Liverpool were the first place. I mean, Joe Anderson just literally went into the tier 3 system without even arguing the toss, and it was quite frustrating for us because we didn't know. I live in Widnes, which is just outside Liverpool. But we had, I was playing a gig on the 11th of September. There was about 150 people. There were like loads of different people. Like there was like 5 different bands on. It was all outdoors. It was all okay. There was no issues with that. And we played another one in Manchester. No issues with that. And then we got told we were going into lockdown in October, the middle of October. I had a gig again, and that was with, I don't know if you ever heard of a guy called Laurie Wright. He's all over Instagram, but basically he makes a living. He makes a living by traveling up and down the country, busking everywhere he goes. And I was speaking to him about like the impacts of what he's had, and he said literally everything we're doing is down south. He's from London himself, but this was his last gig up north for the time being, because why would you put yourself at risk? You know what I mean? If you're up north, that no one's coming out, and that gig was meant to be sold out, and there was literally about 5 or 6 people. It was just mad. Like, it was weird because everyone was scared. It was like scaremongering people not to come to a gig, which they'd already paid money for. And we were just all playing. We were like, well, just make the most of it, because it's probably going to be our last one till March next year, more than likely. Yeah. Looking at the time scale of it. So it's just, I feel like up north, we've been more, we were early affected, and we've not really been catered for at the same time. It's just been like, well, you just can deal with it in your own capacity. And if you don't want to deal with it, then we're going to make it even harder for you. And that's what happened to Manchester with Andy Burnham, as you said. He was forced into it eventually. Obviously, he'd done a really good fighting case, but it was always inevitable they were going to go into tier 3 lockdown. And why would that? What MP doesn't get the power to control their own place? I don't understand it. What's the purpose? He's told them that he doesn't want to do it, and they were like, well, okay, that's it. There you go. You're going into it. And it's just like, why even delay it for even longer than what it was? If you're going to force it and impose it, do it earlier.
That's the one thing that gets me. It's like, oh, we're going into lockdown, but on Sunday. It's like, if it's so desperate, why aren't we doing it like immediately?
Immediately, yeah.
Same with the curfew at the pubs, though, isn't it? Like, I've seen London, and it's created more of a problem having the curfew than it's solved, because everyone's dispersing out onto the streets at the same time, and then everyone's in close proximity. I know, I kind of get the reasoning behind it and like their thought process, but it's just never going to work, was it? But
yeah, I think the frustration isn't being curfewed or isn't this and that. It's a frustration. If there was an issue, why not do it immediately? Why did it take 3 months to go through a tier system, put all the companies at strain, make it like I would rather him say at the early of October, right, okay, we're going to go back into another lockdown system because the cases are rising. We're not going to do this local lockdown thing and then put all strain on companies which are working their arse off trying to do something. And then all of a sudden they're just going to go, actually, well done for trying for the last 2 months. There you go back and furlough. And then putting everyone else at strain. I mean, obviously, yes, they need the money, but we probably would have been out of it by now, or close to being out of it, if he would have started and affected it earlier. It's delaying, it's buffering, because he didn't want to do it, because he didn't want the economy to drop. And yes, I understand the country needs to run with economy, but how can you put people's lives before, you know what I mean? Like, how can you put the money before people's lives? It's chaotic.
Well, the thing is,
carry on.
I was just going to say, it's like, whereas in Wales they've gone into a 2-week lockdown early, so they're just about to come out of it. And sometimes if you just do it early, you nip it in the bud, so you've got more time then to, they can now open up, and all right, this pubs will still be shut at 10, but they'll come out of lockdown in I think it's like 3 or 4 days time, and that's it. Whereas we're going to be in for a month, possibly more, because he dithered and dathered, and so he's actually had a negative effect on the economy by delaying it and by holding it off.
Exactly.
It's like, just to go back to your point about the economy, like a month ago, they were saying there's no money to help out the arts, no money for any of this. But now they're announcing like a massive war chest to extend furlough until March next year. And it's just double standards. It really is. It fucking pisses me off, because
we were told around the Northwest in Liverpool that last week the furlough scheme would be reduced as well. 2 weeks ago it'd be reduced to 60. If we go back into it, and London started getting some cases, and then they just went, well, actually, let's do 80% now, because it's just like, okay, like literally we were told 3 weeks ago, if we go into furlough, if the company needs to do it, they'll reduce it down to 60%. And it was due to run out at the end of this month. And then because obviously we've gone back into it, they've gone, actually, well, London struggling is 80%.
Yeah, definitely. So I was talking to someone last night who's been having some social distance gigs in Sheffield and places like that. Obviously, they're all in tier 3 now, but he was saying about how he doesn't actually want to carry on gigging while it's socially distanced, and you don't get the same feeling of adrenaline when everyone's just sat watching, like you like people up bouncing. So how have you all found like socially distanced gigs? Because I mean, I've only been to one, and it was okay, but well, I mean, it wasn't actually like a band, though. It was a drum and bass night. So that's definitely not the sort of thing you can.
Doesn't really work, does it? That one?
No, you sit down for that. But like, I don't know what you've all thought about socially distanced gigs.
I found it all right. The reason I found it all right is because a lot of the time when we've put gigs on, or when we play gigs, you get situations whereby so we put, say, 2 or 3 bands on a night, 40-minute sets. You can guarantee that one will come off. Everybody will mooch outside for a cigarette. Everybody will congregate in an area and just talk to each other. Especially the acoustic acts. Sometimes if you have an acoustic act warming up, you can barely hear them because everybody's just chattering and chattering. At least with this, it was kind of like this. You have to sit here. You can't get up out of your seat unless you want to go to the toilet. It was like working in a call center. And it's like, we'll bring your beer over to you. Just sit there and watch the bands. That's what you are here for. You're not here for a night out. You are here to watch the bands. So we literally played in front of this audience that were just like looking at us like this. Whereas sometimes you'll play, and if they're not, you'll get one band who's brought a load of people. They've seen them, then they'll all drift outside for a cigarette. If it's not raining, they'll stay out there. They'll congregate and mingle, and then before you know it, you've played your set in front of nobody. So trying to put a positive spin on it, I guess that was the kind of one thing I took from it, really. But you're right, not having them in front of you, whereas they kind of just sat down with no energy coming back. And then you don't get the applause, like the reaction to the song finishing isn't the same because they're not quite kind of emotionally and physically invested in it. So, and then you find it hard to then engage with them, and then that kind of whole dynamic just falls. So it was difficult.
I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed going as a punter to go see shows. I didn't hate it so much, but playing was, I found, super weird. Standing on stage and looking down at people sitting around quietly behaving themselves was not normal. I didn't mind it as a punter. I didn't hate sitting down and watching bands do their thing. But like as a musician, it's super weird standing up there and like being like, this isn't how I learned how to do this or how I've ever done this before.
I found when we played at Lock 91 in Manchester, there was 40 people socially distanced, as I said before, and we were told we couldn't use a full drum kit because it'd get people rowdy. So I was like, okay. So we had a cajon and a bass, an electric guitar, and an acoustic guitar, and it was really stripped back, which musically was really good because everything sounded pin perfect because it was a lot quieter. You could hear the actual music, you could hear singing, you could hear everything. But I also find that it was kind of like being in a restaurant with people watching you, but like instead of people eating, we're just looking at you. And I found it quite weird because I was playing and I knew most of the people there. And then they had obviously some people who'd travelled across to see me, and they were just, it was like, I couldn't even explain how it felt to play. The music sounded great. The place was great, but I kind of felt like it was just like I was on a television program and no one was really, they were just watching. There was nothing really to it. It was just strange. But musically, as I said, it was brilliant compared to how we used to play gigs with the full drum kits and people would be up getting rowdy, that kind of stuff. It felt that would be a different kind of adrenaline, which I had on that. I felt like if I messed up, you'd hear anything because it was so intimate. It was really strange. It was really, really strange. And as you mentioned before, people weren't loitering out to go and grab a ciggy and that kind of stuff. It was just everyone was actually interested in the music because you have nothing else to do, which was good. The support acts got people watching them. And when we were on, it was like everyone was there, but they had nothing else to do, so they had to watch. And that was good, but that would have been good in a bigger environment that people were actually interested in what you're actually doing like that at a normal gig. It was strange. It was like I wanted it to be like that, but in a different capacity. It was weird. I couldn't even put a finger on exactly how it was, but it just felt strange.
So to be fair, ours have been really good. Down in Birmingham, I've been to a few myself, and obviously we've played a few. They've been really good. The atmosphere's been good as well. It's not the same, being like sweating to death next to about 10 other people right next to you. Nothing can compare to that.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't think it's been bad. Like, I was expecting them to be awful to play, but we've done. I feel we've done really well. The one thing that annoyed me the most about it was we played a show with the Claws, and I've been after that support slot for years and years, and went into their dressing room to say hello when we arrived. And we were going to have a talk with them in their dressing room, and then all of a sudden someone knocks on the door. You can't be in here because there's too many people in there. So like, we had to catch Liam and Pierce and that, like, just at different times throughout the gigs, and have a chat with them. We chatted with them afterwards. But yeah, the gigs themselves, like, apart from everything that's going, like, they were brilliant. They were really good down here.
Nice.
I think just to be playing in any environment, to be playing a gig was great. Everyone was kicking off about these socially distanced shows, in Newcastle, when it was like everyone was on like plimps watching. But the way I looked at it was, you're playing a gig, like, you're lucky enough to be playing a gig. That was kind of the way I looked at everything. It was like, at least I'm doing it, instead of sitting at home and complaining that I wasn't playing gigs, if that makes sense. It was weird.
Yeah, the one.
I completely agree with you. I think
sorry.
people need to just sort of be used to it for the time being.
Yeah, it's the new normal, isn't it? That's what they kept saying.
But it's still live music. It's still your mate's band that you can go and support. It's still your favourite band playing your favourite tunes. Like, so just go and support them while you can. And then I'm sure, like, when it's all back to normal, that'll be a bigger standing than if you go and support them now. There's no point in just slacking it off and just saying, oh, well, I'm not going to go to that because I just don't want to go to a socially distanced gig. Like, you still go and support your mates. You still go and support your favourite bands. They always need it, especially in these times. We need it even more than ever.
When we are like going back to normal, like hopefully March, like the spring next year, the hunger for people to go to gigs will be like massive though. So like, if you are doing all these socially distanced gigs now, I suppose you're still building up a little fan base, but like, people go back and see it. If they enjoy it, they'll want to go back even more than what they would have before, I think.
The hunger's still there now. Like, after the first lockdown, pretty much, not even our shows I'm talking about it, but the shows that Birmingham promoters and Sonic Gun promotions have put on, I can't think of many that haven't sold out. Like, I know it's a smaller capacity and you've got to kind of factor that in, but people have sold gigs out within like record times. I know Candid and the Claws, they sold both their shows out within an hour, and then had to do matinees to like get the demand. So, people are already clamoring for it. The desire is already there. So as soon as it's back to normal, it's just going to be one big party in it.
Definitely.
I managed to get tickets to Jamie Webster, like an intimate gig in Liverpool at this place. It was 40 tickets. I was speaking to him and he said there was 1,400 people trying to get tickets. It sold out within 11 seconds, I believe. It was only 40 people, obviously, but the guy's got over like 100,000 followers on Instagram and 100 million plays on Spotify. But it literally said, like, it was, the capacity was like ridiculous for the amount of people who wanted to actually play, to come and see. And in a normal environment, you'd probably just about sell out with that at a decent venue, 1,400 people. But like, it was just mad. Like, the gig itself, we all sat there and everyone just kind of ignored it towards the end, if I'm honest with you, because we were just been told we were going into the tier 3 system the day before, and everyone was just like, I'm not interested. If we're going to have a party, this is going to be the last one. And I was just sat at the back of the room like, what is going on? It was just mad, to be perfectly honest with you, but it is what it is. People need to play music. People need to earn money, and if there's a gig to go to, you're already there, aren't you? It's hard to not get brought in and enticed with the music which is playing live, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So the last thing I'd like to discuss with you all, we are in another lockdown now officially. And I think you mentioned it slightly earlier, Jack, is just the impact lockdown is going to have on people's mental health. Now, I know this is a topic which is like quite heavy with us all. We've all been impacted by it in some way or another, but like, if you got any message to people who are watching, like, what can you do to like stay positive during the lockdown?
So you just got to try and keep yourself busy. That's what I find is good for me. Exercise, obviously, is proven by scientists to help improve your mood. But you know, just go out as much as you can. Even if it's just a walk, you know, the fresh air is going to be something that you need. But yeah, just try and keep yourself occupied, keep yourself busy, and it'll take your mind off things. You know, we got through the first one, which was how long. So we'll get through it again. It's going to be tough though. And I think that's one thing that no one has factored into it really. Everyone talks about it, but I don't think anyone really cares enough to have a plan of action about it. And yeah, it is going to really impact people's mental health. So I've struggled with it throughout the first lockdown, but I feel like I'm more equipped this time to know how to not get over it, but to just preoccupy myself so I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'd go.
Go on.
Someone gone there?
No, go on. You go. I just said go on.
Oh, well, I didn't even say anything. But, I mean, but I'll go anyway. Yeah, for me, first lockdown, I actually learned how to record. Obviously, we record in studios and stuff like that. Yeah, but I actually learned how to actually record.
Yeah, same.
We've released stuff like that I did on my iPhone, literally, and so I think the best advice I give, particularly to musicians, because I mean everybody's going to struggle, but just to musicians who are listening to this is just keep yourselves busy and keep, you know, recording a song and getting it mixed and mastered and then getting it out and then watching that's kind of been the focus for myself and the rest of the lads. So it's just about diversifying and what can you do? You've got a lot of time now. So we started recording and we hadn't recorded for years and stuff like that. But it was like, and the reason we hadn't done it is because we kind of got back together during lockdown actually, with the Vela incident. We were a band years ago and we got back together because of lockdown. We wouldn't have done that otherwise, because you always say, oh yeah, we'll do this, we'll do it, we will do it, and then you never do it because life gets in the way. Well, there is no life to get in the way now.
Yeah.
So all those things that you always said you wouldn't do, or you were going to do, but you never got around to it, you can do them now to a certain extent. So from a music perspective, just look at things like recording and how can you stay busy as a band or as a musician and things like that. And because when you come out, then you're at the front of the queue when you come out with them, because you've had releases, you've had your Spotify plays and things like that, and you've had your reviews and things like that. So just keep yourselves busy.
That's exactly the same as me. I was in a band a few years ago and we had a few recordings and we kept going on. Kind of fell into like a pub scene, just playing gigs, playing like covers, and then we split up December 2018. And then from that, I started doing acoustic gigs in pubs, just getting paid some money as a side hobby because I just needed some money on the side of my job. And then we went into lockdown and I had hundreds of songs which I just had ready to go. And what I would say to any musician who's listening is, if you've got the stuff there, it's a time period which I work long hours. I work 6 days a week, sometimes 7, and I never had the time really to do anything apart from just play gigs. There was nothing else. Creativity wasn't really an issue. It was just go and play a gig, get paid some money. I've had the time now to record songs, and all my stuff which has been put on Spotify has been recorded at home. If you've got the availability to do it, I had an audio interface, my guitars and an Apple Mac, and we literally plugged it in, started recording some stuff, and I started catching a little bit of traction. Some guy I knew inboxed me on Facebook and said, if you don't mind, I'd like to mix and master your songs for you for free. So I was like, right. Yeah, brilliant. I needed something to do, and he'd done that. And what I was doing while I was off the first one was we I just kept churning away. I got my drummer to record some stuff at home and then send it over to me, and then we'd send it off to be mastered and mixed. And I'd done 10 songs. I'd done an EP and 4 releases I've got now, which are coming out, and then I've got another 4 which are done, ready to go. As Jack was saying before, you need to keep yourself occupied to the highest capacity, because before all the recordings and stuff, if I'm honest with you, I was struggling. Like everything, I was sat at home. I work in a day-to-day job where I'm speaking to customers, and I felt like I didn't have any human contact apart from on a screen similar to this. And the only thing which really pushed me through was speaking on the PlayStation to my friends and recording music, and that's literally all I could do. We had a little boy during the first lockdown, me and my girlfriend, and that was something which pushed me. It was one of the best things that could have happened during that time, if I'm honest with you, because I got a lot of time off from work. I was off for 5 months from the first lockdown. I had time to spend with my child, my newborn baby, and I had time to record my music. So one thing which I would say to everyone is, if you've got the time, don't waste it at the same time. If you're occupying yourself, even if it's running, even if it's doing anything, if it's just sitting at home and you're enjoying what you're doing, just do it, really. Because if you just let yourself get swallowed up into what's the word I'm looking for? If you get yourself swallowed up into a hole, you're gonna end up being stuck in that hole for a long time, and it's hard. And if anyone needs any help or anything, then just reach out to someone if you need to, because that's where I ended up doing with my family. Was just I was on FaceTime with them every night because I needed some kind of support. Me and my girlfriend, it was great being together, but when there's only so much amount of time you can sit there and argue over what telly program you want to watch. So just reach out, do what you need to do, and keep on with your music as much as you possibly can, because if you are a musician, this is the perfect time to do it. I know you've not got the fan base to record to and this kind of stuff at the moment, but get your stuff out there, get people listening, and eventually you'll start catching some kind of traction, as long as the stuff's good. That's all I can say to anyone.
Definitely. And just remember, like, there are people out there who will listen to you. If you've got any problems, any issues, there's always someone there.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it's all got time for, but it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Nice one for having us. And everyone's safe. I mean, it's a shit time, but we just got to do what we got to do, haven't we?
Yeah, we'll be back together again.
Yeah. So all the links for all these wonderful artists are in the description below. Check them out. Support your local musicians, even if we're not local. Just support musicians that are up and coming, and do your bit. We all need help in these times, so do your bit. Like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.